Hello, YouTube modeling community. This is Rusty Rudder. It's a little change, I guess. Uh, this is normally what's on my bench, and it's been so chaotic here with stuff on the house and the yard and you name it. I was going to do Jay's commission build, kind of just off scene. I think it's going to be more suiting to review where I am at and what I've got done on Friday. Considering the Aqua Rod comes out every weekend, and I really don't have anything else going on other than the 32 here before long to bring down and get it finished up, and then we'll get it final cleaned. We'll do a photo shoot in the photo booth of that. I'll reveal that on my Instagram page and here on YouTube. So you guys remember, hit that bell notification. You'll know when that video comes out. A little glare here. There we go. So we know we're using the new release of Revell's 1970 cutlass. This is the body. We have got everything sanded down. We are ready for primer. One second, guys. All right, guys. Sorry about that. That was my son calling. They were just at the doctor and they had their first ultrasound, and they did the test. So we should know in a week or two what the sex is, providing it doesn't come back inconclusive. That is a possibility. So hopefully I'll know if I'm having another granddaughter or a grandson. And little Miss Lila will know what her sibling will be, whether she'll have a little brother or a little sister. So anyways, back to topic. This kit so far hasn't, as far as fitment, give any issues. I could highly recommend, I could highly recommend this kit to anybody. The only one downfall is if your skill set's not really good as far as scribing out the lines, door panels, rocker panels, around the windows, A-frames, stuff like that. Be leery because they're not very deep. They're not prominent at all. So I had to go back through and rescribe everything. And I did make one little mistake. I want to try to just widen it up a little bit to make it all look even. There's a little fubber up here at the top, but I don't think it'll be a big deal overall. We will straighten it as best we can, and then between paint and bare metal foil, it'll pretty well be hidden. You won't see it. So it falls back on if you make mistakes, or after you've made a mistake, you see it. Is it in an area that could be hidden? Yeah, it's going from paint to bare metal foil. It'll probably cover that up, but we are still going to try to fix it a little bit better between now and then. That way it's less obvious, I guess is the word I'm looking for. But yes, we are all sanded, all the mold lines. So we'll do one coat of primer, and that's it. And then we're going to come back and we're going to look, because I did skip out and scratch the body a few places, and I've sanded that all down, but I'm not 100% sure that I got it out. So one coat of primer, it'll highlight it if I didn't, and then I know I can go in and maybe do a little putty and then resand, and then we'll finish out the primer on that. But I want this ready for primer the same time I put the van body from Aqua Rod in primer. That way I can mix up one batch of primer and I can spray both kits worth of stuff that I need to spray. And we got the hood sanded as well. It is a functioning ram air hood, which is good. Underneath, I still got some pin marks that I got to take care of on the hood. So, there's a little bit of work left to do. But as you can see, the hood fits really well. No over gaps, warpage, or anything like that. So I'm really, really happy with the kit so far. Now remember, we are transforming this into a pro touring car, and we're being, I guess, minimalist on the approach we take. Yes, I could have full-blown built a tubular chassis, whether it be square tubing or round tubing, uh, you know, the full roll cage. The concept here was to kind of use what we have, so to speak. Uh, neither one of us have a buttload of money, and what we do have is time. So working a little harder is not a bad thing, because I'm not working on this day in, day out, 24 hours a day type thing. I told Jay in the beginning that this would be something that's going to be months because of everything else I got going on. Sorry, you guys, my nose is just, if you deal with allergies, you completely understand. So, next part was, we had tires and wheels picked out. We knew we were going to run a Ford 9-inch, which we're using one of my 3D printed ones, because it's got the plates for the coilovers and the 4 links already in it. So we will scratch build the links themselves. We are using those real nice 3D printed coilovers that we used on the 32, that we also be using on the Ring Brothers Charger, and that leaves me with one set. And I saw a post by Clay Kemp the other day on Instagram. He purchased the same ones, and if that man uses them on his builds, you know how high quality they are. I do need to do some research so I can find out the name and everything where I got it, and I'll pass that on to you guys. But they are super nice, and they can become functional very easily. It would take some precise work, higher skill set, because you're going to have to cut it, and then you're going to have to pin it, and you're going to have to do some drilling and everything else. But they could very easily become functional, as were when you push down on your model, they would, collapse and come back up, collapse, come back up. They're just that high detail, but they are finicky, very small, so you'd have to be very precise and, have a good idea what you're doing. I could probably do it, but it's one of those things, maybe if I bought 2 or 3 sets where, if I busted one, it's not a big deal. But I had plans for all 4 sets that I have, so I don't want to risk it, not even for the biscuit. So we picked out our diff, and this is the same length as the factory or OEM diff that comes with the car, which this comes with the W27 aluminum rear end, which is a quick change rear end. I would have loved to have adapted that into this build, but we're going pro touring, 1,500 horsepower. A 4.9-inch is a bigger boy, be better to handle that kind of power. So we're trying to stay true to, what we're doing here. Also, as if you were building a real car. What do you want to go with the aluminum, fin cover and the quick change system, which would be nice if you're running on the street and then running on the track on the weekend. You could change out your gears real quick and be good to go. I'm just not familiar with the W27 rear end of how much horsepower it could handle without severe, work to it, as far as the ring, pinion gears, and all that. I just don't know. So we're going with the 4.9-inch. It's more of a common, what do you call it? It's used more than anything else. It adapts very easily to pretty much anything you're doing. So we did pick that out. Like I said, we do have the coil springs. We're going to scratch build from aluminum rod, the links. We're going to be using the 3D printed link ends on the aluminum tubes. That way we still get that high detail. Because if you look, remember, I moved the factory mounts. They were out here. I moved them in. So these will be our lower links, and then our upper links will be on this bar right here. They'll go to here. I'll have to probably make little brackets for them, but that's, at the end of the day, that's not a big deal. So we'll have a 4-link coilover, adjustable coilover suspension. We did get this all done. It's all filled in. It's all been sanded. It's all been dry fitted to check and make sure everything fits tight and nice. Not too tight, not too loose. We filled in. I mean, you can still see all my marker marks, but the primer will cover that up because we're going to be using a black primer and then come over with a satin black paint. But we filled in all of our gaps. This is like a step up detail here, so we recreated that. We just had to chisel it out, sand it, chisel, sand, until we got the look. And then everywhere we cut out, I had to add this back in because this was all notched out to be able to get in here to the frame. The frame was the frame rails removed, both of them total 8 square inches or 8 scale inches. So they were out 4 inches on each side, and then I moved them in. Now what that does, that still gives room for the diff to sit up in here and the coilovers and the links and all that, but it gave me wheelbase right here. How wide of a tire can I fit in here? And we're putting a 14-inch wide tire in here. So big meets, and I think they're 23s, 23 or 24-inch tires in the back by 14s. So they're good meets. So yeah, I could have just scratch built all the frame and did what I wanted to do, and none be the wiser. But we didn't. We used what we had. We moved it. We filled it in. We've puttied. We've sanded. Now this is ready for primer as well. We've got our transmission mount cut out, and there's 2 locations it can go in. There's one closer, one further away. So I'd say one, if it was like just example, and it could be possibly true, I don't know, but a 350 turbo or a 400 turbo transmission, long tail, short tail type deal. Now we are using the 572 big block twin turbo motor, so we still got some modifying to do and some decisions to make, and I'm kind of up in the clouds right now, lost a little bit trying to figure it out, because remember, we're being minimalist, so it's easy just to go to and get this or buy this and make it. We're trying to actually create something, so to speak, out of nothing, even though we do have something. So on the front mounts, we had to move those forward just for the engine to have something to saddle down into. They were back here. We notched in the frame, because if not, then our spindles and upper and lower control arm system stuck out too far, because it is like a pro touring, pro stock type front suspension, all tubular, but it's got the U brackets that would bolt onto the frame or weld to the frame. So we just inset those a little bit, and they kind of fill in this space really nicely, so it's not going to be real noticeable, but it puts our tires and wheels inside the wheel wells. And we've dry fitted that. We've made sure we will double check before we even go into primer, because I'll kind of just tack those into place with some putty, put a tire on the end of it, put this inside the body, and make absolute sure. If that's the case, everything's golden, then we'll remove the putty, clean it up, rough sand it a little bit, and we will CA glue those pieces in there, because we will paint that all one color and then come back and hand paint or mask off and airbrush the front suspension. So yeah, I mean, this took quite a bit of time, but in my opinion is well worth it, because it's all using what the kit had, other than a little few pieces of scrap styrene sheet just to fill in the gaps. And I also used CA glue, gap filling CA glue, sanded it down, and then came back in with putty as my final. And I use, just like everybody else says, the white Tamiya putty. I do have the gray. That's what I use. If I've primered and I'm going back over it, I'll use the gray primer putty. It works very well after you've already got your first coat of primer on. So you don't lose that primered, so to speak, that edge, especially like on a white body. If you sand all the way through and you got the white plastic exposed through your primer, and if it's tiny little areas, I mean really microscopic, it's not a big deal. But if you get an area that's an inch or so, and say, like in this case, we're painting the body red, the red would be going over white, and then the red would be going over gray, if that makes sense. It would be a shift in color, just a slight one, but it's a possible. So we want to make sure that everything is gray. So now what we got to do is I'm still working on the roll cage. Now this is pro stock roll cage out of a car, but we're going to use it because it does fit very well. It does need some modifications. So if I use the floor pan here, and we set this in there, kind of the points of contact that it needs to make. So we can see we got a gap here going down. So we got to add tubes coming down. We got to cut this X-brace off. We'll cut it off back here, and we're going to extend that X-brace at a different angle to come down through the rear package tray. That's where we want it to come down through. And then we want these two, I guess you can see there, the two in the center. We want those to come down at an angle, and then to a bar that's like a short U that'll come across right in front of the back seat and down to the floor pan. So we have 2 points of contact there. These bars will come out and contact there. That way a passenger could still ride in the back seat on each side. So if that makes any sense, that's the only way I can truly see that I can get this to fit in there, because as far as roof line is perfect, coming down the A-pillars is really good, clearance for the dashboard really good. So and that doesn't mean that won't change anytime you change the dynamics of something. Constantly refit your pieces back in to make sure you still got, you know, the space and clearance you need. So it's not you get it all together and you go to put it in the body and all of a sudden nothing fits, and then you're got a finished product and now you got to start tearing it apart. That really sucks. So we still got a little bit of work to do on this, and I've just got it kind of tacked together, so I got to be kind of careful with it. It is fiddly. And then our second thing is the inner fender wells. It would be super tight, super tight, if I left these on. And I really like that because it gives you areas to mount, you know, ignition boxes or coils or whatever, washer fluid containers. It gives you all those great areas to mount them to. But we're resembling that we have a full roll cage or full tubular chassis or upper support system, I guess, through the car. And that would carry out through the engine compartment as well. So give me a second. Grab these. I meant to grab these before I started this video, but, you know, I'm never prepared. So these are, well, we have our rack and pinion. You can see I got that off of there. I got a little bit of cleaning up to do. And then I may have to cut this in the center and pin it and shorten it a little bit just so these hit on the spindles of the new front suspension we're putting on. These are the side rails. These would go back to the firewall. This would come down to the frame there, and these 3 points. So you have 3 points of contact here, and this would actually come in and connect to the roll cage. So we kind of want that look. We want it to carry through. This car's got a lot of horsepower. It's really fast. You know, if you flipped and rolled it, you want to be well protected. So our goal is we know we have this, and we don't want to do away with the factory frame. So we have to retrofit these in. Get this where you can see it. Retrofit those in, and you can kind of see how they fan out, because this will support the fender now versus the inner fender well. So we will have to modify these a little bit and maybe add to them, take away, I don't know, but you know, I want those in there. I want to get rid of the fender wells. I want to, when I look down in the engine compartment, I want to be able to see both sides of the front suspension, plenty of room for that engine to breathe, and the piping and everything to have room. So I'm not trying to cram or modify the engine to fit, because we've already done a lot of modification in here. And as you can see, this is the engine. We've started painting it. We still have to seal it, so I don't want to handle it too much. We chromed, but we didn't chrome the transpan. I've got to go back over this and sand this a whole lot. It's rounded. It was a bad print, but we want to get this flatter and more true to, you know, it's supposed to be. But the rest of the detail was cool. I mean, it's got all the things for the lines. We will add, hopefully, some detail from these lines running up to the radiator, and the other two lines will be, because there's four, one in and out for the front cooler and one in and out for the back cooler. So we want those in there, and then we'll have our ignition wire or electronic wire coming off the front, because these would be electronic solenoids, just for that detail coming up. And that's when we get up into all that crazy detailing, will we do that. But meanwhile, we'll touch up, and then we'll get our holes drilled, touch back up, and then we'll seal it all up. That way it doesn't get scuffed up or messed up. We're going with a satin black finish on the oil pan. The intake, which is right here. I may need my glasses. Stand by. And these are just, base coats. We're not final. We have lines in the back. I'm not for sure what these are for. If you guys do, let me know. I'm not big on these big honking crazy setups like the twin turbos and everything else. I'm assuming these are fuel inlets. I don't know. I mean, I can wing it, and it is what it is. I'd like to be more precise. But we have, it looks like maybe an electrical connection in the center. I'm not for sure of that either. And then two either water lines, or these are the fuel lines. This engine, I've not painted the valve covers yet, but we'll have, because there's no distributor, we will use coil packs, and then we'll run the wires down, because this block does have you see them down there, the 4 holes. Those are spark plugs. So we will be running our plug wires into those holes. Our headers are inverted. Yes, would be versus, normal hanging down like this. They're reversed and inverted. So they're backwards and they point up versus anything else. And I'll see if I can put one of these on here and get it to stay, and you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. And black is just the primer. It's not going to be the color of the header. So you can see that's how the header mounts. And then we have and there's our intercooler. And that's where we're at right now. I'm trying to figure out space for the intercooler. If I'm going to be in front of the radiator, or if I'm going to have to cut these like I was talking about before and make tubes. Because this comes off of here. This is, and I just broke it. I mean, I got plenty of these. It's not a big deal, but I can glue that back too, no problem. So if we're going to put tubes on here and bring them down and curve up underneath and bring this up in front of the radiator, and then run these back up to the turbos, which is this setup here. You can see I've kind of got a lot of detail painted done on it. Not hard, just using different shades of metallizers and chrome, just to give the look of the setup. It's not, it is a show car, but it's not. It's street driven. It's raced on the weekends. It's, all the 9 yards. So everything's not going to be spotless. So we dirtied up just a hair. I hope you guys can see that. I mean, there's a lot of detail. And I 3D printed this whole setup. So I've got spares and extras of like tubes like this. So I can definitely rework it. But I thought it'd be cool this time around to have it come down in front of the radiator. Whether it makes logical sense or not, I don't know. But because we are using an LSX, and I drop it, an LSX radiator, racing radiator, that'll get repainted. I will probably do that in red. That's just the primer on there, and I painted, hand painted everything else around it. We have an electric fan, so we got to wire that. We do have upper and lower hose setup. We do have the 2 lines going to the transmission, and we do have a drain petcock down here in the bottom corner, which, once we get this final painted and we put the varnish on it, and then we can come back in with the black wash and really make the detail stand out a little bit, get this painted red up here and kind of touch up everything. It'll look really good. So the question is to put down here in front of the electric fan, which is pulling air through the radiator to cool the antifreeze down. So it makes more logical sense to me that this be in front. So the wind from the car is pushing through, the fan is pulling through. this is going to stay cooler. It's got colder air up to the turbos, which is key. So that's where we're at with that. We do have the core support here. I do have to sand this raised area up, down, where it's flat or smooth with the bottom. That will give me about a 1/16 of an inch space. And space is very important here because at the end of the day, if we set this in here, you guys can see the engine wants to set right about there. Now you're like, oh, that's a lot of room. I don't have the front drive on here yet, though, either. So it does hit right for our closest mount. If you can see up in here, that little thing right there in front of my finger, that little pin mark. There's 2 of those on each side. One's closer right here, and one's back a little further. We have to use the one closest to the engine bay to catch the transmission on the back of the tail here, kind of like where it would be in a real car. But that puts our engine, really kind of far forward. So I could notch this out, where you see this, and let that sit down kind of below the radiator, and it would get direct flow into it that way. It's just going to be key once I mock all this up, and I can kind of set it in here, tack it all in with tack putty, and I can get a really idea of how close everything fits, what doesn't fit, and what I got to do. So that's kind of where we're at now, is figuring this out here, because we're done back here. We just got to figure this out. We do have to figure out how we want to run our exhaust. And then, like I said, this will primarily be ready for primer once I have to do any cutting up here or modifying, making tubes to come up where it comes up in front of the radiator. And I want to do it in a way, because there's a lot of detail here I really like, and I don't want to remove it. Maybe I drill holes and I run my pipes down through this and come up and catch the turbos, and then go up and catch the intercooler. So we got some figuring out to do. And like I said, by using these bars, that takes the place of the inner fender wells. So we got to figure out where we're going to cut those off at. This actually works as part of the frame, so we'd probably leave this piece and cut it off. There's a seam line. I don't know if you can see it or not, right there in front of my finger. Cut it off right there, that seam line. So it'll just be like this little support here, because this fits into the frame and kind of fills out. Get it on here, right? So you can see there, that little brace fills in that frame. And truthfully, we just don't need, the rest of it. If it was an everyday driver, it'd be a different story. You wouldn't want all that rain being blown up in your engine compartment and all that. But for what it is, now it does change a factor of a thing. Is this usually when you glue it down, this makes everything stronger. Because it becomes part. It's all part of each other. So our bars are really going to have to make really good solid contact on our frame. And bars, I mean these. To where either they sit down in the frame and then I fill it in, make it look solid, or fill it in solid and then these would mount to the top of it. It really looks like, to get the angle that they hit at and where they're going to be is kind of about right there. Mind you, that goes down, but we need that flare out enough that it's going to give the look of support in the fenders, and yet widens the engine compartment a little bit for all this mess to fit up in there and stay underneath the hood. That's the key thing. This is a sleeper. You pop the hood, you definitely go able to tell, and you'll be able to look at the car and tell it's a race car, but yet it's, what kind of race car? Well, nothing's sticking through the hood. They don't even have a scoop on it. Well, the car does have a little bit of a scoop, which gives us a little room also, because it is a functional hood. You can see down through there. So it raises it up, that's probably about 2 scale inches, maybe 1.5 inches. So it gives us a little more clearance, and it's split on each side. Therefore, we have a turbo on each side. That really helps. And again, we want the hood to fit on it. We don't want to cut the hood at all. And we want that kind of look. See, it's sitting in there really good now on its own. And then our front suspension will come up and tie into this and look all as one. And like I said, I'm not sure on the color. I do want this to match whatever this ends up being. The car's will be red. I think we're going with white interior, if I'm not mistaken. So I need to offset an offset color, so to speak, that makes this detail pop out, but it doesn't take away from what's there. So that's yet to be done. It may be like a graphite gray, maybe a goldish color like this. Bring back a little of that Oldsmobile look, like, you know, their engines were gold. I'm not for sure yet, so that's still got to be figured out. We do have our, almost forgot about, that's the little piece that goes on the hood, or the grill. So that's got to be body color, and then that gets, you know, glued onto the front of the grill. So we'll have to prep that little area on the chrome part. I thought I had that over here. It's not a big deal, but everybody knows, you know, when that grill's in there, that little center piece of the hood right here comes down in between the grills, and that's got to be body color. But we are going with red. We are using MCW paint, poppy red, and we're putting the black stripes on it. It will have the gold wing spoiler in the back. We will have, I'm thinking we're going to run the exhaust all the way out to the back. We're going to run the fluted pipes. I think those are in the kit, but we will use solder probably for most of the exhaust. Aftermarket mufflers, we will use an aluminum drive shaft. Hear me out on this. So trying to stay true to the car, even though I don't need it. I would like to retrofit this fan shroud onto this radiator. Can I do it? Yeah, I would have to do a little modifying here. You can see it fits pretty good. So if I run the intercooler in the front of the radiator, the only thing I have to be concerned with is the front drive of the engine and where the engine sits, and make sure I have enough clearance here. If I do, I mean, I am going to retrofit, if I get this the right way, retrofit this back on to that. Even though it's an electric fan, that's fine, but it gives a depth of detail. Like, you know, okay, well, hell, that looks all stock, but it's not. It's all aftermarket racing, LSX radiator, electric fan, big block engine, twin turbo on top of it. And so we've got some really cool components. The next is the firewall. Now I know with this kit, I think it's pretty detailed. The AC box, I think it's got the hoses and lines, which we're not going to be using. So we probably will remove this and fill that in. The blower motor, the same way. We'll make this a smooth finish there. We do have some detail boxes here that we will probably make use of. Add some wire detail to it, so on and so forth. But as far as anything else, I have to inspect and see what this is. If it's nothing, then we will fill this in and make this smooth all the way across, other than the two little electronic boxes here. And that's all that'll be there. Oh, I think this is for the master cylinder. So we will leave that, but we will make everything else smooth, one level, as a nice finished firewall, because our bars are going to be mounting to this part of the firewall. So we're going to have a connection, you know, right in here somewhere. So we need to square off our tubing, make sure we get a good point. We may even drill this out prior to test fit and kind of mark it where it goes. That way this will go into that a little bit and add some structure and integrability to the frame. And then with this being glued down to the frame, and being part of this will all become one again, as if it was, you know, or if we were using it this way. I was going to opt out maybe the back seat to run the roll cage down that way, but I think the way I'm going to design that roll cage is it keeps clear in the center, so two smaller people could actually sit in the back of this car too. So 4 people could fit in the car and go for a cruise, is what we're trying to do. So I hope you guys really like this. You like the direction it's going in. This will be a Friday thing up until it's completed. Unless I just haven't got anything done that week on it, and then it will just kind of touch base with what's going on. But meanwhile, I'm going to be working on some of the little components, because I got to start doing some mock-up to figure out all this. This is the next headache. This was pretty bad as far as figuring out and how it would work and dry fitting pieces in. I still may need to come back and narrow the diff just a little bit, and that's fine. That I know this is as long as the stock diff, so I know I'm not way too long or way too short right now. It's just depending on the wheels and tires, and once the rotors are in, if I got to clip off anymore, because this is where I'll take it away to be able to scoot the tires in towards the frame rails. And then scratch building everything else will be cool. The trans cooler will go back under here somewhere on a slight angle, and then that way it's close to the transmission, so we'll run our lines up to the tranny from that. It's just an additional way to keep that transmission cool with that much horsepower behind it. The diff cooler, I don't think we'll put a diff cooler on this car, mainly because we are running a 9-inch. It's a real good diff. It's got real good axles in it, and you know it's set up pretty good. It shouldn't be an issue, and it's just space between here and here comes really tight when you start adding pulleys and belts and another little cooler and running the lines and everything else. So we save our headaches for, like up here, this is going to be a headache area. But once we get this done and we get everything in primer, then we can do some, you know, and get our base color paint on. We can start doing some sub-assemblies to this and have this pretty much as a rolling chassis, just awaiting, because the interior is going to be fairly cut and dry. It'll have black carpet. It will have a black rear package tray. The door panels will be white, kind of an off-white, and same way with the seats. And I don't know if I'm going to age the seats at all. We may highlight, or we may mix down some paint, in other words, some gray or light gray, and get it even lighter, just to highlight the detail in it, make it look like it's, you know, it's a little old, but in really great condition, type thing. Kind of like we did with his Charger. Although we kind of went extreme. That's the last thing to do to the car is the interior. The interior is old, but it's solid type thing. This one's going to be a little bit more pristine. Just that little used look to it. What else? There was something else. Oh, well. Just in case, like I said, I wasn't prepared. This is the rear tire. So you can see how girthy this thing is. And here's our sleeve that is not wanting to go in. I have not cleaned these up yet. There we go. So you can see the sleeve. We are going to murder out the wheels. I think versus chrome, not that chrome wouldn't. I'm going to end up breaking this. Let's try this again. There we go. Good tight fit. That's what you want, especially when you glue it. So you can see the depth of the rear wheels. There's the thing. Give you an idea, indication how wide those are. They fit just right in there. I mean, there's no room. There's no more wiggle room. I can't gain any more this way with the frame rails without taking away the gas tank detail, and I don't want that. We're using the factory gas tank, and we've got a plate down here, but we're going to adapt that plate for a bigger fuel pump, easier access fuel pump without having to drop the tank down. You just remove this plate and you can get full access to the, guts of the fuel tank. But you can see if I don't drop it, don't get carried away, our tires fit in there. Super wide. I mean, you're looking from the back how wide those things are. These are almost as wide as a set of slicks for like a Pro Street. That's any indication. They're, well, too many kits put up to grab one, but I've compared them to the, like you get with the 67 Chevelle kit or the 65 or 66 Nova Chevy 2. There's not hardly any difference in them. So you can see what we're, we lightly tubbed, but we didn't have to majorly tub as you would if you were running big tire on a Pro Mod or anything like that. We're running Pro Touring. We want the handling of the low profile racing style tire, and as fat of meat as we can get without really having to completely modify the suspension, which I think we've done. But you can let me know what you think. I mean, that is a cool, these are Ryan Jones. These are just ones that I print. I don't have them available right now because, like I said, my printer's down. This was my last set, and Jay really liked them. Jimmy Ledford's a big fan of them. I think he's bought 1 or 2 sets over the past months, and now I've got 1 set left that Jay picked out and really liked. And I thought this would be really fitting for the Cutlass. I mean, if you want to put the body up there. So, get my fingers out of the way. You can kind of get a C. We always want the rear to come down about right to the lip or over the lip of the wheel. That's our ride height. The front, we do want a little rake, not crazy, not hot rodded out, not, air shocked. We just want that nice, comfortable, not level, but just a little tilt to the rake. And with the suspension, sorry guys, with the suspension that we're going with and everything else, we will achieve that. So that's pretty much all I got for today. Be watching for the 5th edition of the Aqua Rod to come out. It'll either be this weekend or Monday. I don't think we'll have a mail call Monday. I don't have a mental Monday, so Monday is kind of up in the air. I do need to do some shop maintenance, and maintenance means clean. It's dirty in here. It's getting unorganized again, so I may spend Monday in here getting everything kind of cleaned up, organized, get my build boards updated. I gotta get my 3D printer cleaned out. I do want to run a test print. I was going to do that today, but I don't think I'm going to be able to. I just want to run it again one more time and see if it was a fluke or if I still have issues with misprints and all that. There's some parts I need to print, but I'm going to print them in such a way that if I get 10 good ones, I'm ahead of the game if all the other ones fail. And then there's something else, especially in this build. Oh, we will be using the MS or MGS F ignition and ignition switch. We will be using the they're in the box with the 32 roaster, but we'll be using these valve stems in the tires. Other components are some 3D printed racing switches, kind of like you see on top of the roll cage. We got some switches here. We're going to have another couple set of switches down on the dash or maybe on the console, but elegantly put. You know what I'm saying? Not just placed and it's just strictly race, but where it's elegantly placed and it blends in with the interior of the cockpit of the car. I don't think a lot of that wiring will be exposed since it will be blended in to the components. So we won't have that detail. We will have some detail from this. We will run some wires down and, down the A-pillar and then straight down, and that's probably where they'll end because you won't be able to see anything more than that anyways. I do like the color scheme he used on here. We may highlight it a little bit more, but other than that, I don't think we have to do much to it. we will eliminate the padding. So we just got to carve all this down, sand it down, get it the same shape as a regular. And like I said, we just got to modify this. So that's it. So if you guys got any comments on this, like I said, leave them down in the comments. Mark at Hopping Up Models, his link's always down below. I've not heard really much from him. This kit, I think he does have available on his website. And like I said, it is a great kit, but just be mindful that you're going to have to come back through and rescribe the panels. And there's some mold lines down each side of the B pillars. The A pillars and the chrome trim really need to be cleaned up, front and back. Now, that's not saying every kit is that way, but this one I had to do the trunk, the rocker panels, so on and so forth. And in this case, we're going to keep our rocker panels smooth. We're not going to add the chrome detail down here. We will be all body paint everywhere, including the fenders. We're not worried about the chrome trim. So I have to come back through here and do a final sand on the sides and get rid of that chrome trim, at least to where it blends into the body, because we opted that chrome trim out. The chrome we're going to have is in the back, the front, around the windows, and the rain gutters. And this is going to suck because I hate them. So that's pretty much it. And then I think I have some photo etch hood pins. I think we're going to opt out and put those in. Just add that little bit better detail versus using the kit ones. We'll see. We'll compare the two. As long as I don't have to modify the hood, I will use the Detail Masters, I think they are, photo etch hood pin kit, which we'll put down here in the core support. I don't think there might be a piece that goes over the top of it. We'll have to drill out and put the pins in so they actually look functional in the little wires like a real hood pin. That's the detail kit I got. So we'll see on that. Yeah, it does. I'm sorry. Right here in front of my face, it has it. So we'd have to drill this out and put the pins in. And the best way to do that is put this in place, mark that, and then get down there with a real fine tip marker and just make a little dot. And that's where you drill and glue your pins in place. That way it lines up with your hood perfectly. And we'll go over that when we get to that. But right now it's still, now that I got this all done, is just mocking up, dry fitting, putting together and see where everything sits, what I got to do, what I can eliminate. I don't want to eliminate a lot, so just keep that in mind also. But again, I think Mark at Hopping Up Models has this kit. Again, that's the kit we're using. Beautiful car. And let me know down in the comments what you think. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Doesn't cost you nothing. Hit that little bell notification while you're at it. You'll know when these videos come out. The next one, like I said, will be the Aqua Rod Part 5. I think we get into some primer on that one, and that is just going to be chassis primer. That's the only thing we're working on right now. We want the chassis to be complete rolling chassis when we're done with that section, and that'll include the engine being in, drivetrain, tires and wheels, and that all being completely done. And then we'll move on to the body again. We'll finish sanding that out, blah blah blah. So without further ado, we'll call this a day. You guys have a great weekend, and this is Rusty Rotor. I'm out.